Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May is in Brussels as the EU says it's ready to sign the Brexit withdrawal agreement. The Spanish Prime Minister says Britain has given him assurances over the future of Gibraltar. Mrs May insists she'll always stand by the territory.
The UK's position on the sovereignty of Gibraltar has not changed and will not change. I'm proud that Gibraltar is British and I will always stand by Gibraltar.
French police use water cannon and tear gas against demonstrators in Paris, demanding a cut in fuel prices. Deforestation of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil hits its highest rate in a decade.
I don't understand how you can watch them all at the same time.
Tell me.
You know, Tommy, you're really a freak.
And Nicholas Roeg, the director of The Man Who Fell to Earth and Don't Look Now, has died at the age of 90. Hello and welcome to World News Today. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has been meeting EU leaders in Brussels ahead of Sunday's summit, where her Brexit withdrawal deal is due to be signed. Earlier, she held talks with European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and Donald Tusk of the European Council. And the process moved forward another step when the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called off his threat to boycott Sunday's meeting. He says he now has the guarantees he wanted from Britain over the future of Gibraltar. Here's Prime Minister May's response.
The UK's position on Gibraltar has not changed and will not change. We have negotiated on behalf of Gibraltar. We've ensured that they are covered by the whole withdrawal agreement and by the implementation period, and in the future we will continue to negotiate on behalf of the whole UK family, and that includes Gibraltar. I'm proud that Gibraltar is British. I will always stand by Gibraltar.
Well, Christian Fraser in Brussels has been asking our Europe correspondent Adam Fleming about the Spanish Prime Minister backing down from his threats to derail the process.
This was an exercise in reassuring the Spanish that their argument, which was that the withdrawal agreement as it is now would somehow mean that the future relationship between the UK and the EU after Brexit would automatically apply to Gibraltar. And he's got a reconfirmation written in black and white that the Spanish government will have a say over how that final future relationship is applied in Gibraltar, which is effectively what they had before. But Pedro Sanchez has a piece of paper he can wave in the Andalusian elections, which are coming up in the next few days' time. And also you can, if you're the Spanish foreign minister, you can send a tweet saying this is the biggest thing to happen to Gibraltar since the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which I think the British would say is a bit over the top for a restatement of their existing position.
It works a week ahead of elections. We're just seeing these pictures of Theresa May going into the meeting with Jean-Claude Juncker this evening. What is it that she's here to discuss?
She's definitely not here to negotiate, because the two bits of the Brexit package, the withdrawal agreement, the 585-page divorce treaty, and the political declaration, the 26-page outline of what the future might look like, those documents are sealed. They were zipped shut effectively yesterday by EU officials. So she's not negotiating. I think this is going to be talking about how tomorrow can be a springboard to the next part of the process, which is the Brexit package being ratified, first in the British Parliament and then in the European Parliament. But this is a moment of history. It's a moment of political theatre, because the leaders didn't have to do this. They didn't have to traipse here tomorrow and have this sombre ceremony to endorse the document. Legally, they're not obliged to do that. Yes. But I'm glad they are.
And important for those correspondents who've been following this process for 20 months, of course, as well. Just the format tomorrow, when they get these documents in front of them, will they vote on them?
No, there's no vote. And in terms of the choreography, what will happen is they'll all arrive at the 27th, that is, walk the red carpet as they always do for an EU summit. We'll try and catch them out, or at least get them to say something, a soundbite that's historic for the news. Then there'll be a meeting for half an hour with the European Parliament President, Antonio Tajani. Remember, the European Parliament has to give their consent to the final package. Then the 27 will spend an hour together. They'll agree a separate side document that I've had a look at, and I think will spell out 7 areas of vigilance that they will keep an eye on as the talks progress in the next phase. Then Theresa May will be ushered in for a maximum of an hour. Then we're expecting a press conference with Presidents Tusk and Juncker at midday Brussels time tomorrow, so well before Sunday lunch, where the whole thing will be wrapped up, and that'll be it.
Adam Fleming and Christian Fraser in Brussels, and there'll be full coverage of Sunday's Brexit summit across BBC News. Our special programming starts at 8 GMT. We'll keep you up to date with all the developments throughout the day. To France now, where police in Paris have used tear gas and water cannon against protesters demanding that President Macron drop an increase on the tax on diesel. Across the country, 130 people have been arrested. Diesel's the most commonly used fuel in French cars, and the cost has risen significantly over the past 12 months. It's all part of the president's drive against pollution. Well, a large crowd of demonstrators known as the Yellow Vests converged on the Champs-Élysées for more than a week now. Protesters wearing those fluorescent yellow jackets have blocked highways across the country. Our correspondent Lucy Williamson reports from Paris.
This a reminder for France's president. Sparks can quickly ignite into flames. The Champs-Élysées, not a tourist site today, but an unofficial battleground. Protesters armed with paving stones, pushed back by tear gas, water cannon, riot police. This movement is about more than fuel prices. Its supporters tired of taxes, tired of politicians. Their slogans threatening revolution. The French authorities, a joke to some.
We have to pay for rent, food, insurances and telephone. What's left at the end of the month? Nothing. I don't want Macron to just cut taxes, I want him to resign.
Why is it always the little taxpayer who has to pay? We've been tightening our belts for 30 years. If it gets any tighter, we're going to explode.
The government banned protesters from this street today, pointing them to the Eiffel Tower instead. The far-right leader Marine Le Pen questioned why. The government says she's encouraging dissent.
We
are using water cannons and tear gas to push back the assailants. The ultra-right is mobilized and has answered Marine Le Pen's call. They want to attack institutions. They want to attack governing MPs.
The government said no protests on this street, and look what happened. They say ultra-right elements are responsible for the violence here, but many ordinary people say they also support this movement. This protest has brought together people from all political backgrounds, all parts of France. But it's a movement with no national leader, no formal structure. Its membership and its identity hard to control. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Paris.
Well, let's take a look at some of the other stories making the news. One of the biggest football matches in Argentina's history is in doubt after a bus carrying one of the teams, Boca Juniors, was attacked by rival fans shortly before the game was due to kick off in Buenos Aires. The final of the Copa Libertadores between two Buenos Aires-based clubs is due to decide who will become the next South American champions. Voters in Taiwan have rejected same-sex marriage despite a ruling by the island's top court last year that a ban was unconstitutional. It's unclear how the result of a series of referendums on the issue on Saturday will affect the court's decision. Before the votes, Taiwan appeared to be on course to become the first place in Asia to legalise same-sex marriages, but in recent months there's been a backlash. Government officials in Brazil say the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest hit its highest rate in a decade. Close to 8,000 square kilometres is lost in a year. To put that in context, that's an area roughly 5 times the size of London. Environmental organisations say illegal logging and expanding agricultural activities continue to be the major factors in the destruction of the Amazon. Well, let's get more from Miles Silman. He's a professor of conservation biology from Wake Forest University in North Carolina. Thank you for joining us. Just put into context for our viewers, please, how important the Amazon is, not just to Brazil, but to the rest of the world.
The Amazon is our largest remaining tract of tropical forest. It houses between 1/3 and 1/4 of all species on the entire planet. So it's incredibly important in terms of biodiversity, but it's also important in terms of climate. So when we think about the Amazon forest, it is a tremendous store of carbon. So all those trees are storing carbon, and it's actually taking carbon out of the air. So it's taking carbon from the atmosphere and storing it in those forests. And as we lose those forests, we not only lose the ability to store carbon, but we also return that carbon to the atmosphere.
And this increase is quite an alarming one, but overall the trend is down when it comes to deforestation. What's behind this spike?
Yeah, so the deforestation really reached its peak through the 90s and early 2000s, and it's fallen by about 70-75% since 2004. And that was due to some really forward-looking forest regulation that was put into place in Brazil, and also some falling commodity prices, which made exports of soy and to a certain extent beef less profitable.
Now we're seeing this increase in the rate of deforestation. What's the impact on the forest that remains when huge swathes disappear over years? Does it weaken the Amazon as a whole?
Yeah, it does. So when we go back to thinking about the Amazon, so first to put it in perspective, like you say, the deforestation rate has dropped through the late 2000s and through the teens, and now it's ticking up. And so it's a little bit of an alarming sign. If you have a reversal, then one of the things that can happen is you start to lose the forest. And when you think about the deforestation figures that you're looking at, the forest degradation that goes on as well, you can multiply those figures by somewhere between 3 and 4, so the actual loss of the forest integrity is much higher. And one of the fears is that the Amazon forest passes a point where it ceases to be a sink for carbon in the world and starts to emit that carbon back. And when we think about forests as a whole, remember that forests are responsible for as much emissions as the transportation sector, so the car, shipping line, is equal as the land conversion globally. So it's one of the main places where we can store carbon to mitigate pollution.
He died almost immediately. Murder of John Kennedy, a disaster the imagination of the world. The first of a new generation of leaders.
Margaret Thatcher is resigning as leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister. Report number 10 to see the Queen's told economists it's a funny old world.
Angela Merkel is Germany's first woman chancellor, easily securing the majority she needed.
Attempts to fly a hot air balloon had to be abandoned after a few minutes, but nobody seemed to mind it. As one local comic put it, it's not hot air we need, it's hard cash.
Cuba has declared 9 days of mourning following the death of Fidel Castro at the age of 90. When he developed close ties with the Soviet Union in the 1960s, it was an alliance that supported the right to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
This is BBC World News Today. Theresa May is in Brussels ahead of Sunday's summit to approve the Brexit deal. The Spanish Prime Minister says Britain has given him assurances on Gibraltar. French police used water cannon and tear gas against demonstrators in Paris who demanded cuts to prices. Archaeologists have discovered an ancient Egyptian tomb that's believed to be maybe 3,000 years old. It was found near the famous Isle of the Kings in Luxor. The tomb, which was decorated with paintings of ancient contemporary 1,000 statues and figurines, is an unlaid out ruins.
This ancient coffin is one of the 2 discovered in Luxor, on the banks of the River Nile. It contains the mummy of a woman, almost perfectly preserved in linen inside a coffin for more than 3,000 years. Ancient Egyptians mummified humans to preserve their bodies for the afterlife. The woman was named Thuya and was from the 18th Egyptian dynasty, whose most famous pharaohs include Tutankhamun and Ramses II. It's the first time Egyptian authorities have opened a sealed sarcophagus before the international media. The discovery was made by a French-led mission in the northern region of El Asasif, alongside other significant finds.
We just continued to work, and then we found the fine chamber was sealed with hot bricks. So we found almost 2 exact wooden coffins in perfect condition of preservation with flowers in the tomb.
The other tomb from 4,000 years ago belongs to Paul Ratcliffe, the overseer ancient shrine, along with 1,000 miniature figurines of serpents, which ancient Egyptians believed would serve the dead in the afterlife. The archaeologists removed 300 meters of rubble over 5 months to uncover the tomb, which contains colored wall scenes depicting the owner and his family. So far, Egypt has revealed over a dozen ancient discoveries this year. Sadaba Hidari, BBC News.
One of Britain and the world's most original film directors, Nicholas Roeg, has died at the age of 90. He had a career spanning 6 decades and he was celebrated for his original and controversial filmmaking, including Don't Look Now, John
Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland in Nick Roeg's masterpiece. It was sumptuous, eerie, hypnotising and unsettling. He was a cameraman before he was a director. Here he is on the set of Fahrenheit 451, filming Julie Christie. He was director of photography on Dr. Zhivago, but fell out with the director David Lean, whose second replacement won an Oscar for Roeg's work. His first film as director was Performance, with Mick Jagger as a rock star and James Fox as a gangster. It included graphic scenes of violence, sex and drug taking. The Man Who Fell to Earth featured another musician, David Bowie, in a sprawling work of science fiction. He couldn't be driven. On one film, the crew threatened a walkout when he filmed for 24 hours non-stop. But no other British director matched Roeg's visual imagination or his skill at non-editing, bewildering and delighting audiences.
Film director Nicholas Roeg, who died at the age of 90. And we've had this tribute from Donald Sutherland, who, as we heard, starred in Don't Look Now in 1973. He said, he is a fearless visionary, always was, always will be. He was a living his joy to work for. He went on, I fell in love with him then, and will forever. Now, Hamilton has all the sports, including the latest in
shocking scenes coming out of Buenos Aires this evening, where it was said to be the biggest night of the year for South American football. The final of the Copa Libertadores, the second leg between two of the biggest rivals in club football, that's River Plate and Boca Juniors. Well, the game has been postponed already over 2 hours so far, and the Boca team bus was attacked as it made its way to the Monumental Stadium. Windows were smashed, and many of the team, including Carlos Tevez, are reportedly being treated for the effects of tear gas. These are the scenes inside the dressing room where Boca players are being given support and treatment for physical injuries. Already away fans are banned from derbies in Argentina when these two sides have met in France. Well, let's get more on this side from our football reporter Manny Jasny, who's in Buenos Aires for us this evening. Manny, we are seeing some shocking scenes from Buenos Aires. What is it like there at the moment?
Well, I got into the Monumental Stadium 3 hours before it was scheduled to kick off, and at the time, the atmosphere was building. It was a combination of tension and anticipation. But then we heard these rumours that you've just been talking about, and within hours ago, there were still no team sheets. We didn't know who was going to play, and then suddenly they turned off the booming music inside the stadium, and that's when we knew that something was happening. The game was initially delayed by 1 hour, but then it was delayed again till 7:15 local time in just under an hour's time, despite the adamant wishes of Boca Juniors not to play this today.
I mean, it's been delayed so far. Is it likely that it is going to go ahead, Manny? And if it does, should it go ahead? And who will play? We're looking at some of the scenes inside the dressing room, and they're being treated for what we think are tear gas injuries.
Boca Juniors captain Pablo Perez went organising government body of football in South America, and also we understand Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, there was a similar incident 3 years ago when River Plate players were attacked by pepper spray by Boca Juniors fans. That game was abandoned. That was also in Libertad Flores, and River were given the win. Boca want the same thing to happen tonight, but it looks like it will go on. Music's back on. That's been my guide for whether it's going to happen or not. The music's back on at the stadium, and the atmosphere has changed. It's a lot more optimistic now than it was.
And it has been Buenos Aires. Thank you for that update. And football, the shock result in Spain earlier when Real Madrid lost 3-0 to Eibar for the first time actually. Barcelona and Atletico Madrid are playing right now. They're into the final 15 minutes. There remains 0-0. And in the Premier League, Tottenham ended Chelsea's unbeaten start to the season, beating them 3-1 at Wembley. Leaders Manchester City and second place Liverpool are still unbeaten after big wins at West Ham. And Watford and Manchester United failed to win at home again. It was goalless at Old Trafford against Crystal Palace. France still have a chance of successfully defending the Davis Cup after winning the doubles today to reduce Croatia's lead in the tie to 2-1 in Lille. After losing both singles rubbers on Friday, France's new defeat for Nicolas Mazraoui and Pierre would give Croatia the trophy. But they beat Ivan Dodig and Mati Pavic in 4 sets, so they're still in it, but no team has come from 2-0 down to claim the title since 1939. And that's all the sport tonight. Back to you.
Back in the early 1970s, a Dutch engineer came up with a novel idea for solving the increasing problem of too many cars on the roads in larger cities. He proposed an electric car-sharing scheme called Witcar. Launched in Amsterdam in March 1974, the scheme grew to have 1,500 members before it was shut down because of lack of support from the city council. Well, the Witcar inventor, Lou Schimmelpenninck, spoke to the witness mystery team.
But still make a design for that car, and we built it, an electrical car, and that was the Witcar at first. The car was very dominant in the town at that time, and that was not what we wanted. We said, okay, let me go to another system. We can do it with a bike, but we can also do it with an electrical car. In Dutch, we called it the Witcar because it was pure. There was no pollution, it was white car.
The Witcar station was opened here in March 1974 by Minister Hoppe. It began with a 3-month trial period.
It was in the centre of Amsterdam. It was very revolutionary.
Elk lid krijgt naast een aanmelding een gecodeerde magnetische sleutel waarmee hij toegang krijgt.
Each member gets an encoded magnetic key to access the system. You select your destination on the dial. The computer checks if there's a free parking spot, and if so, a light comes on. The journey can then begin.
In the beginning, we got permission only for one station. That was very difficult. 3 months we are running at one station. The police followed the cars because they were afraid it is dangerous. But there was never an accident. The speed was low, 30 km/h, and so it was a safe system for town. It was completely clean.
De bedoeling is dat er op enige tijd 15 staan.
The aim is to get to 15 charging stations with about 100 Witcars. Since these cars take up so little space and produce no exhaust fumes, they seem to offer the perfect solution for an overcrowded town like Amsterdam.
We get more and more members. At the end we had 4,500 members. But the problem is that we had too few charging stations. The town council was a little bit against it, and so we came never to the 50 stations we need. Crazy. It was very bad that we had to stop. But it was not the idea. The idea was very good. I'm now in my 80s and I want that towns in the world, this system should be used, and I'm designing now a special car for it, and it looks very good.
Back to the Future with the Witness History team. Don't forget, you can get in touch with me and some of the team on Twitter. I'm at Eamon Southgate, and of course full coverage of the upcoming Brussels Summit on BBC News West.
Hello. Well, no major change on the way for tomorrow, for Sunday. That is for most of us. The south of the country is in for better weather. Saturday was not great. We had cloud, we had outbreaks of rain. Sunday's looking a little bit brighter. So let's have a look at the big picture then. The air's still coming out of the east through this evening and into tonight. And there's a lot of chilly air across Europe right now. It's not desperately cold, but it is cold enough. So temperatures once again will be struggling over the next day or so. Tonight, a fair bit of cloud around across the country. It tends to dry out eventually in the south as well. There'll be a few clear spells, particularly across western and northwestern, and that's where we might get a bit of frost. But overall, the temperatures in towns and cities will be typically between, say, 3 and 6 degrees Celsius. So how about tomorrow? Well, once again, across many western areas, particularly western Scotland, Northern Ireland, around the Irish Sea, Wales, here's some sunshine, a bright day for you here. But eastern areas can be at times cloudy, there might be 1 or 2 showers. But I am expecting a much better day for the south. There should be more sunshine, or at least drier weather around during the afternoon. And the temperatures, as I say, single figures with those winds blowing out of the east. Now on Monday, the last of the quieter days, is a big low out there in the Atlantic, and actually another one you see just off the screen there. All of this will be heading our way in the coming days, but on Monday, starts off quiet, the winds will be light first thing in the morning, there'll probably be a frost first thing on Monday, some mist and fog in places as well, almost anywhere in the country. You can start to see that unsettled weather here winding itself up in the Atlantic. That will be pushing towards western areas of the UK late Monday into the early hours of Tuesday. So Monday itself is looking fine, dry for many of us. Now with this change to our weather comes also much milder air, much milder. It will feel milder, but the winds will be stronger as well. On top of that, we've got the rain as well. So a big low starts to approach our shores during the course of Tuesday night, and basically another one just to the south there will be rattling through the UK through the week as well. So the temperatures will be picking up, the winds as well. That's what happens this time of the year. You've got to pay for it. If you want milder weather, you will get the gale force winds and the outbreaks of rain.
Stories set to shape the news agenda. Headlines. Frustrating. Original perspectives from days of news. See the big picture as it emerges. The papers, tonight at 10:30, 11:30 on BBC News Channel.
Follow the story, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. You can follow every moment in depth with BBC News. Get the full story at bbc.co.uk/news. Get the headlines as they happen with the breaking news alert. And keep up with events by watching the BBC News Channel in the app. Follow the story wherever you are with BBC News.
Join Simon McCoy who brings you the top stories live. All is Italian. Case tennis correspondent for the latest in sport. Dealing with this before.
The heat of the wind is quite sure.
Today's weather. It's getting colder. An undeniable chemistry.
He's still laughing. We have to talk to each other.
There's only one side.
The other
Afternoon Live with Simon McCoy, weekdays at 2 p.m. on the BBC News Channel.
This is BBC World News. The headlines. Theresa May is in Brussels for last-minute talks with European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker ahead of Sunday's Brexit summit, which is expected to formally sign off the agreement. Police in Paris have clashed with protesters demanding President Macron drop his plan for the country. Cost of diesel has risen significantly over the past 12 months as part of the Britain's drive against pollution. The start of one of the biggest football matches in Argentina's history has been postponed by now after a bus carrying the Boca Juniors team was attacked by rival fans. The final of the Copa Libertadores between two one-time Spanish clubs will decide who becomes the next South American champions. And Nicholas Rowe, the director of films such as The Man Who Fell to Earth and The Maguire, has died at the age of 80. At 10 o'clock, Ben Brown will be here with a roundup of the day's news. First, our world.
Every year, thousands of people come from Thailand to work in Israel, hoping to build a better life for the families of what they find when they get here can be shocking. For more than a year, we have been investigating the treatment of Thai laborers working on Israel's land. To produce food and veg sold across the world, but they are anxious their work is damaging their health.
ท้องมันแบบมันก็มีน้ำแล้วมันก็มาถ้าว่าสิบปีอันนี้ก็ทรมาน
And many deaths, most of the causes remain In this field, we will be asking, who cares about Israel's the land of milk and honey. A country rich in history and one of the world's wealthiest nations. Despite being hot desert, Israel grows millions of fruits and vegetables every year and exports them to Europe and Russia. A modern miracle of hydro-engineering. And an industry reliant on migrant workers. But everything is not as Sarina Adrian and your journalist with BBC's Thai service in London. Just over a year ago, I started to get warning messages from contractors in Israel. They were telling me that they were being abused and exploited. Being in Thailand myself, I wanted to find out what was happening. We are starting our investigation in southern Israel after a kick-off without a farm not far from Gaza. Agriculture in Israel is organized into hundreds of gated communities called moshavs, and each moshav contains dozens of farms and farmhouses. Before this is moshav now, it looks lovely. Big trees, flowers, nice houses. This is the home of a well-established farming family on a moshav. The Thai workers they employ live just a stone's throw away. 15 workers share each with the neighbors. This accommodation isn't temporary. The work here isn't seasonal. These are the only farmers these gentlemen in Vienna will know in Israel. Sofia Sisawat was 29 when we returned. Like most of the workers here, he's from the northeast of Thailand. But never visited 3 years before, because his parents and his wife were often going without food. He's agreed to show me around. Many of these laboring jobs used to be done by Palestinians, but not anymore. Sofia is in Israel as part of an official government scheme. He's one of 25,000 Thai nationals working and living here.
This type of accommodation is sadly not usual. Workers here tell me that temperatures inside can reach more than 40 degrees, and they are scared that at any point the whole thing could collapse on top of them.
We asked Sofia first for an interview, he refused, but he told us later that since our visit, he has made some improvements to the workers' Investigating the lives of Thai workers on Israel's farms isn't easy. There's a climate of fear. Fear people will not produce income. But over 14 months, we visited more than 50 farms and spoke to hundreds of workers to get to the truth. We are heading to a small nation called Iran in the deep south of the country. There are several car sheds on our road. The animals seem well. The workers less so. We have called to his working so we have agreed to hide his real identity. He sneaks hide behind the counter for a year. The other workers told us if he was not speaking out, they would be sacked and then jobless and homeless in the Finland. Despite the White House, it wasn't long until they we asked the shopkeeper inside to contact one of the farmers who want to leave. Over the phone, Mel told him that he had to go to the told us to leave the shop. Agriculture in Israel is a multi-billion-pound industry. It's hard work, but for those farmers who make a success of it, The benefits are easy to see. This is Lakish, the most beautiful moshav we saw, and is built on revenue from bread. We have come to take a closer look at one of the farms. Ashamadi has lived on Lakish for 20 years. He says he employs 3 workers and he was keen to show me where to live. Then something strange happens.
You won't speak to my
Mr. Mahdi wouldn't let us take our cameras into his warehouse. What he didn't know at this point was 5 months ago, we'd already filmed inside. And this is what we found. A man sleeping in what appeared to be a magic bedroom, complete with kitchen. And it's all just meters away from the chemical check. Although Mr. Mahdi won't let us feel inside the warehouse today, I did manage to take a look, and the man we'd seen sleeping there 5 months earlier was still there. We asked Mr. Mahdi about him.
היה תאילנדי שלא חיבר. לפעמים לא מוצא חן בעיניי ממושב אחר באים לפה. יומיים, 3, מתחיל את החבר שלהם, ישנים פה, לא שהם עובדים אצלי. העובדים שלי יש להם כולם אני אמרתי להם, לא לשים פה, באים לפה, לא באים לארוחה.
Co-workers are allowed to stay in Israel for a maximum of 5 years. Given their stay, they are entitled to expect a reasonable level of comfort and safety. According to the workers' handbook, they should be provided with suitable housing, including at least 4 square meters of sleeping space, personal comfort, bedding, heating, ventilation. Everything is laid out in black and white. In the dozens of farms we saw, there weren't many examples of good practice, but we did see some places reach out. These rooms are on Moshav Sofa, Israel's central Rawat. They are solid, no rotten walls or leaking ceilings here. The workers are employed by Date, farmer Ruby Shkuru, who has a very different take on the situation.
After 3 months, the place is out. But this is not the farm, this is the worker. You don't care about this place to sleep. You don't care at all. You said it before, he's in blue.
Mr. Shkuru's staff seem to be saying they are paid fairly and they live on this idyllic farm. Not many of these Portuguese. Just when I thought I had seen it all, another tip off, this one about Moshav Amiot. These homes became known to us as cardboard city, and it's easy to see why. Workers here are sleeping in rooms made up of packing boxes. But right now, that is the least of their problems. The owner of this farm confirmed to me by his lawyer that he hadn't been able to pay his workers due to financial problems. He refused our request for an interview. A few months later, the workers told me they did eventually get paid, but only half of what they were expecting. With very few farmers willing to speak to us, I have come to Tel Aviv to take our findings to Avshalom Ilan from the Israeli Farmers Federation.
The outsiders, looking on the big picture, so more or less the system is working. And in a moment that there is problem,
We showed Mr. Bilan our bouquet of
I don't know what is the place. Let's say, if those are the conditions, they have to complain, and that's what it's against the law. Nobody will support such a kind of condition, and people in charge that fulfill the law have to pay for it.
So far, workers have told me that underpaid, overworked, intimidated, and living in squalor. But the story doesn't end there.
บางทีมันก็คลื่นไส้แบบท้องมันแบบปั่นป่วนแล้วมันก็มีน้ำออกมาอยู่นิ้วเราแล้วมันก็ทรมานเพราะว่าสเปรย์ยาเนี่ยมันทรมาน
Spraying pesticides for global protection seems to be common. We depend upon this worker going about his daily work, and of course, no problem with his beyond. Israel's use of pesticides is amongst the highest